We have Brian joining me today for the CAIC weekly update. And Brian, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great as always. Always love catching up and talking about all things to keep us safe in the backcountry. We've got lots to talk about. So let's go ahead. Let's dive right in.
Yeah, and I know this is our last regularly scheduled weekly update for the season. Mother Nature has not yet decided to call it quits. And so let's walk through essentially what's going on. You can see from our homepage map here, we're looking at widespread moderate avalanche danger. And we're going to likely stick with moderate avalanche danger for the next several days, but the reason why will change. So right now, as we kind of move through Thursday, our main concern has been the same concern it's been for the last week with these strong April sunshine, warm spring temperatures, is wet avalanche activity. And so we've seen a lot of wet avalanche activity from the recent snowfall shedding off the underlying really stout crust, like this example from in the northern mountains. But you can see what we've been warning about are when those underlying crusts break down, the snow underneath is moist and wet because it's seen a lot of water. And then we're really warning about these gouging wet avalanche activities, which carries much more volume and are much more dangerous. That's going to be a problem with us through Thursday. And this is just a good example of the kind of the wet avalanche activity we saw across the state this week with those warm temperatures and strong spring sunshine. That will all go to bed here as we flip the switch yet again to winter weather as we move through Friday and the weekend. But this avalanche concern, the wet avalanche concern, is going to be the primary concern through much of the rest of the spring. So, and we'll have a brief reprieve from these with a freeze on Thursday night. But again, expect this stuff to rear its head yet again as we move into the early part of next week. The other thing to worry about is that we've got these large, hanging, sometimes overhanging and sagging cornices along many mountain ridges. And these things can be quite dangerous.
And now when we talk about these cornices, Brian, what should people do to keep themselves safe? Do you have some more examples that we can kind of jump into?
Yeah, I do. Here's a pretty good example, and you can see that these cornices carry tons of volume. Here's another one from in the Central Mountains and the Elks. And you can see that if these things break off and you're underneath them, they can really cause a lot of trouble, and people have been killed from cornice fall. The cornices themselves are quite dangerous because they're so big and so hard, but once they fall onto a slope can also act as a trigger for additional avalanche activity. And so the best thing to do, because when and where these things are going to break exactly is really unpredictable, is to just give these things a wide berth. And this is the time we start to see these things calve off. And here's a really good example of a cornice that, in fact, the one from the previous photo, pulling away from the ridge. And so when you're walking on ridge lines, you want to stay way back from the edge. Cornices can often break much further back from the lip than you might think. And these open cracks are just signs that some of these cornices are ready to fail. So these are not the terrain features you want to travel under. Certainly don't want to spend too much time underneath them. This is not the place to take a break or eat your lunch. If you must move underneath cornice features, your safest way to do this is to move through them early in the day when conditions are still colder, and move underneath them as quickly as possible. Give them a very wide berth when you're traveling on the ridgeline and walk much further back than you might think these even have the potential to break. And now, as we move into Friday and then into the weekend, one last concern is that we are still seeing some wet slab avalanche activity break loose across the mountains. Here's a recent example from this week in the northern mountains. But as we move more liquid water into the snowpack, we're going to see these types of wet slabs, essentially be a concern with the warm weather and all the meltwater infiltration. But as we move into Thursday night and into Friday, we have a return of winter weather. So Mother Nature is not done with winter yet in the high country. And you can see Thursday night, essentially through early Sunday morning, we're looking at some fairly substantial snow totals. All those reds indicate about a foot of snow. That is not out of the question for, areas of all mountains, northern, central, and southern. The front range is favored along this, and we could see, storm totals over a foot. What this is going to do is bring a return of winter and cold snow storm instabilities, like this photo here, where you can see the avalanche breaking just below the cornice feature in the ridgeline, and we're going to have a series of storm slabs, wind slab avalanches for essentially Friday through the weekend. When things warm up again next week, this snow will shed off, and we will flip the switch back to wet avalanche activity. And this is just late spring in Colorado. So expect this pattern to kind of continue, with the wet avalanche concerns being the main driver of avalanche danger for the forthcoming weeks.
Oh, now, Brian, it is such a bittersweet moment that we had our last CAIC report here, but it doesn't have to stop here because people still need to stay informed. So where can they go to get those live updates to make sure they stay that way?
Yeah, they can get live updates at the CAIC mobile app or at colorado.gov/avalanche. And please know that we're going to continue to issue daily avalanche forecasts for anywhere you're going in the high country through the end of May. So avalanche concerns do not go away as long as there's snow on steep snow-covered slopes, and we will be here throughout that entire period. So please check the avalanche forecast before you head out, and let us know what you're seeing. There's, we get less reports from the professional operations like the ski areas because things are starting to shut down. And so what the public is seeing is really important to us to help make accurate forecasts.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brian. As always, thanks for keeping us safe in the backcountry. We'll make sure to keep on those updates until the end of May. So thank you so much.
Sounds great. And we will see you here next season.
See ya.